Hey guys, this is Dave with AudioWin, and this is the Celest Plutus Beast. Of course, I recently released a first impressions and unboxing video, and since then, I've spent quite a bit of time pairing it with different sources and comparing it to a lot of other IEMs. And even though most of my testing and comparing confirmed or validated my initial impressions, that extra time spent with the Plutus Beast may have actually revealed some things that may or may not have caused me to change some of my opinions of it. But we'll circle back to that. We have a lot to talk about, so let's get started. Since I've already done an unboxing, I think I'm going to just forgo going over the contents of the box and go straight to the price, specifications, and design. The price of the Plutus Beast is $89, and it has a tribrid driver configuration consisting of one bone conduction driver, one balanced armature driver, and then one SPD driver, or square planar driver. And this is a driver that was actually developed by Celest. The drivers are housed in a 3D printed resin shell, which is actually very similar in shape and size to the Phoenix Call. So it's very rounded, and I wouldn't say it's small, probably more medium, but still maybe on the smaller side, at least for my ears. It fits my ears very comfortably. And I talked about the design in my unboxing, so I don't want to spend too much time on it other than to say I like it a lot, especially for this price. The faceplate is very beautiful and it is hand painted. I got the red and orange version, but they do have a blue version as well, which is also really cool looking. Cable is also nice. It's pretty soft and I haven't had any issues with tangling. It's fairly easy to roll up and fit in the case. It's a 2-pin cable, and I picked up the 4.4 version, but there is a 3.5 version available as well. The case is also pretty cool. I really do like the brown leathery look, but it's a little on the small side. But again, the IEMs being smaller and the cable being a little more pliable, everything still seems to fit fine, and the case being a little smaller actually does make it kind of nice for traveling. Okay, let's move on to the sound. So in my initial impressions video, the first notable attributes of the Plutus Beast that kind of stood out to me were its forward, upper, mid-range, and its slightly overly smooth treble. So that affected its presentation in a couple of different ways for me. First, that extra upper mid-range energy caused vocals and some instruments to have just a little more forwardness than I usually prefer. Not that it was overpowering everything else or shouty necessarily, but it did come across as a little unnatural. And I also felt like the bass energy was slightly lacking in comparison to the upper mids, and its treble energy was also lacking. So it basically had lots of upper mid-range energy, but left me wanting just a little more bass and a little more treble. And I did also notice some warmth, but I felt like that extra low, mid, and mid-bass presence actually made sense in that it did add some note weight and a richness, but also helped to bring things back into a little more balance. And I do still feel that way for the most part. However, After listening to dozens and dozens of other test tracks, I may have changed my thoughts just a little, especially now that I know the price. So the Plutus Beast Signature falls into the neutral category, which is my preferred tuning, but I personally like just a little more bass. And again, there's also something happening that's causing the vocals and instruments to sound just a little bit unnatural, but I think I know what that might be, and I'll see if I can maybe explain that in the sound breakdown. So let's start with the bass. I do wish, again, there was a little more bass energy. However, when you look at the tuning of the bass, it's actually done pretty well. It has a very good extension, so it's not lacking in sub-bass presence at all. And then they've also handled that transition out of the bass into the mids okay as well for this price point. And this is one of the areas I kind of found myself reassessing my initial impressions and even changing my mind a little, because after running through more bass test tracks, I did notice things were a little cleaner than I initially thought. And that transition out of the bass into the mids is actually pretty well controlled, in my opinion. Mind you, I had no idea where this was going to land in terms of price at the time of my first impressions. And I will tell you, I thought this was going to be more expensive. I was thinking it was going to come in around $120 or $130. So considering this is under $100, you are getting very good bass quality for this price point. Now, as we move up the graph into the mid-range, we do lose just a little bit of energy between about 400 hertz and 1K. And then we have kind of a sharp rise into the upper mids and then a pretty substantial peak between 2 and 2.5K. And I think that's where I'm picking up on some of that unnaturalness I mentioned earlier. And it's really not bad. I just wish the mids had a slightly smoother presentation. And just for comparison's sake, I would refer to the Moondrop May or Aria 2 because both of those have a much smoother, more natural sounding mid-range and are priced similarly. And then as you move into the treble, we do have a pretty decent amount of treble energy in the lower treble, but it is lacking in the upper treble just a little. So while it does offer an overall smooth treble presentation, it could use just a little more energy there to bring out some needed treble detail and micro detail. Not that it's completely lacking. It's there, but again, I just wish it had a little bit more. I do think it's enough to keep cymbal strikes and the attack on percussive instruments from falling too far back into the mix. And again, I do wish there was just a little more upper treble presence to bring out that shimmer and air in some of the live recordings I tested. As for technical performance, it's pretty good. Again, I think a slightly different approach to the treble tuning may have helped to reveal a little more treble detail and micro detail. Soundstage is about average width. It's not necessarily wide, but I wouldn't call it narrow either. It's wide enough to space things out a little, and it has enough forward depth as to keep it from becoming too intimate or feeling claustrophobic. Imaging is okay too. It's not super focused, but at the same time, I didn't really have any problems placing instruments within the sound field. It's just that they weren't totally anchored and they could sound a little more like they were floating within the space. Now, I should also point out that at this price point, this is very common and that you rarely find an $89 IM with really good technical performance. I would actually consider this to be totally acceptable, even very good at this price point. And on a technical level, it does compete with some of the best under $100. It's the tuning that I feel is kind of holding it back just a little. My top IMs under $100 right now are the Galileo, Aria 2, and Kima. That being said, I do still think the Plutus Beast is a very good IM. It's just not the best under $100. And when you take its technical performance, its build quality, design, and the overall package and presentation into consideration, I definitely feel like it's worth the $89 asking price. So that concludes my review of the Kinera Celest Plutus Beast. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch. If you like my content, please take a second and hit that subscribe button. Also, if you would please like this video, please share this video. I hope you guys have an awesome day.